Thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for the panel. I'm hoping we deal with a lot of the issues in the industry today. I'd like to start though at the top end, at the macro level, and work the way down into more specific areas. It is going to hopefully it's a conversation, and I'm hoping some of you will participate in it. So if you'd like to ask a question, I'm sure there are mics around. Just please ask a question. There'll be time for questions, but we can also ask questions on the way through. And to start off, I think you've got to start probably with the issue of the day, which is the imminent election of an Abbott government. Perhaps I could start with Carolyn, because the one policy that we know they're going to introduce is to bring back the ABCC, the Australian Building Construction Commissioner. Will that make the industry better, the construction industry better?
Look, I think undoubtedly, and being the builder that's on the panel, with my builder hat on before I move to a developer hat, there's a clear correlation between the industrial activity that we saw in Victoria last year, coinciding with the disbanding of the ABCC. The period leading up to that had been relatively peaceful right across the country, and in Victoria, where I think we'd acknowledge the construction unions in particular are at their most militant. So if Tony Abbott's true to his word and does reinstate the ABCC, then I think that stability and clarity that investors in the industry are looking for, and certainly participants like Grocon sorely need, we're looking forward to that.
And will it be enough? Are there other things that should be done to help the construction industry in Australia, to help sort out the IR?
Look, I think the ABCC coming back is a really good, strong first step. Let's see how far that takes us. I don't think the position of creating more disharmony in those sectors is necessarily the way home. With that reinstated and giving the unions in that sector an opportunity to respond to that in a constructive way would be the first step. If there's a different approach taken on that, then maybe I'll need to revisit my thoughts on the matter.
No, thanks very much. Now, Julian, Nicholas, you probably know Tony better than most people here. I think you went to school with him. Yeah. What are you expecting from an Abbott government?
Well, I think Tony's been very clear that he's focused on competence in government and being very clear in terms of how he'll be proceeding. And so I think we shouldn't be expecting any surprises. Obviously, one never does, but I think it will be relatively predictable in terms of the path that the government will be going forward. I think where we sit at the moment, both in this country and across the world, is the last 5 years has been marked by a lack of confidence in terms of confidence for the future. And we've seen this in Australia, obviously, with the savings rate stepping up in 07-08 from about 5% of GDP to about 10% to GDP. Now, that could be a longer term trend, but certainly people are saving. That there is a lack of confidence. You feel it from a corporate viewpoint, from a retail viewpoint. And the election provides a break, I think, where people can actually reset their confidence levels, which could have an important impact on the broader economy, given the switch taking place at the moment with mining investment actually stepping down.
So you think there could actually be a perceptible change in activity after the election?
Well, caveating this a little bit, the research we've done from looking at prior elections, and this is Macquarie research, have looked at what's happened with prior elections, and broadly speaking, the view of the economy, the drivers of the economy before and after the election have largely remained unchanged. And I think that probably big picture is what will happen here. However, we know we're in transition at the moment from the in the economy in terms of the importance of mining investment going from 1 to 2% of GDP 10 years ago to 7% of GDP at the moment, and obviously step down over the next few years. So there is a transition point happening about now in any event, and it is coinciding with the election. So we could see a bigger change than we've seen historically. as a result of this movement of confidence. But the key point is there is the economy is in transition right now.
So, Michael, what will you be looking for?
Yeah, I think I'm also very hopeful that there will be a bounce in confidence immediately after the election, given that we've spent so long waiting for the day to come. But there is also a risk that post-election, if assuming the coalition get in, that things are worse than we thought, and as a result of that analysis, there's a need for a mini budget pre-Christmas, and being pre-Christmas, worst possible time for owners of shopping centres and other large assets. And I think that's about the only risk that I have in my head around the next 6 months, as far as the boost of confidence or lack of boost of confidence that may occur after.
You don't think there's a potential for a Campbell-Newman effect, do you?
Well, I'm not so sure about a Campbell-Newman effect, but I suspect that we may not know all of the skeletons in the closet, and if I was an incoming government at the moment, I'd want to get that on the table and have a very clear strategy for action. There is a view that a new government will move slowly, but I actually hope that they'll move very quickly to put in place the necessary steps to build that confidence and get people employing again, get people signing leases again, and get people shopping again.
But I'd always like to ask the panel what sector you think, a sector of the market, sector of property that you think would be a very good sector to be in for the next year. So you'd hope you'd be getting a bit of growth out of this. So, Michael, you're across a fair number of the sectors. Yep. Which one would you like to be in next year?
Well, half of our portfolio is retail, about 35% office, and the remaining sort of 12-13% heading for 15% is in logistics. So I think it's always hard to tell, which is the benefit of being a diversified trust, because it's very difficult to pick a winner out of any sector or any stock over any period of time. But there's probably less headwinds in the logistics space at the moment, particularly pre the outcome on the election. So I think retail, office continues to represent very good value, medium long term, but both have some pretty significant headwinds for the short term. And
Bill, where would you like to be? You don't have to speak. You can talk about housing, although I think you're actually withdrawing out of housing. So is there a sector that you think will outperform, or is there a geography that will outperform?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a fan of CBD office, but the other sector which could surprise a lot of folks over the next couple of years in their ability to produce free cash flow is the hotel sector. I think it's well suited to capture far more than its share of gains that people don't realize right now.
That's not because you've got some you want to sell, is it?
I'm not going to speak on that, obviously, but the dynamics of that sector we think will change very positively.
Yeah. Nicholas, have you got a few?
Well, if I can just come back to the first question you asked me, actually, in terms of what would a change of government be like. I think, actually, as I said, in terms of what the government will be aiming at is one of competence, obviously, and predictability, which I think is true, and being disciplined. But I think, actually, it will be a very good government. Actually, it will create quite a powerful boost to confidence in terms of how the people will be responding. And as we're saying, at this key turning point in the economy from mining investment, I think we'll be surprised at the impact it will have on confidence, because I think it will be, given it will be very competent, it will be very predictable, I think it will actually really flow through to how people are feeling about the world and the investment decisions that will flow from that.
Yeah. I mean, I just, if I could, because you actually lend on housing, do you think there's going to be a big surge into housing? I mean, you're doing a little bit of lending.
Well, I think we're seeing housing is obviously is being driven at the moment very much on affordability, yeah. And I think we think that will continue, and it is obviously very dependent on interest rates. But I think the Reserve Bank clearly is using the interest rate lever as a way of adjusting from this mining investment sector to a broader base, and it's pulling back interest rates as a way of actually achieving that. And we will see that through the housing market. And remember, the housing market is important in two ways. Number one, in terms of the building construction, that's very important. But secondly, in terms of consumer confidence. And we're certainly seeing that in the US, for example, at the moment, where we've seen house prices stepping up in terms of construction, but also we're seeing consumer confidence flow through. So I think there's that dual impact that interest rates can actually have through the housing sector. And I think we're feeling that that will be continuing. And as I said, from an election viewpoint, I think a predictable, confident government that people will feel confidence will actually flow through, I think, to the broader economy, which is important at this time of transition.
Thanks, Ray. And Carolyn, where are you going to put your money this year?
Well, we remain a strong advocate for commercial office in CBD, but the thing that Grocon will be doing more now than it has historically will be a lot of res. We see that affordability challenge, and unless there's a fundamental change to population growth policy and that kind of thing, well-located residential is something that we're keen on.
Okay, and Darren?
No surprise, Rob. Commercial property in the 4 main CBDs, but watch out for that residential with these low interest rates. I think residential housing within 10k radius of GPOs in those major cities will go very, very well in the next 12 months.
Thanks very much. Now, look, please, I think we should thank that panel. That was a very good session. So, if you like, Michael Cameron, Bill Powell, Nicholas Moore, Carolyn Viney, and Darren Steinberg. So thank you very much.